Welcome to another live stream, organized stalking, gaslighting, and sensitization. And we talk about these things a lot because, when you're dealing with the mechanism of organized stalking and harassment, there's a lot of science. There's a lot of different techniques that are used. And, whether people are dealing with a subtle form of this or they're dealing with a very aggressive form of it, it's designed to gaslight the individual, get you to question yourself, right? I've mentioned several times in other videos that the blessing for the aggressive harassment is that at least you can anchor yourself to something where you're not wondering, because they do that. They do that to people. They do subtle, organized stalking campaigns where you're not really sure what's going on. And rather than people being aggressive with you or using, personal information in directed conversations to mess with you in an obvious way, or threatening you or breaking into your house and moving stuff around, there are a lot of people out there who deal with that subtle form of organized stalking and harassment to where, it's the same in the sense that it complements the environmental tyranny that I've talked about a lot of times, to where it can turn on and it can turn off, and then the victim wonders if maybe they're losing it, maybe they're just reading into this stuff. But the trick is with both of those techniques is that you're gonna read into things, okay, and that's what it's designed to do. Because not only are you dealing with the obvious stuff or the subtle stuff, but everything that you at least used in your salient landscape before has been flipped upside down. And so you're trying to find homeostasis. Your brain has been hijacked and you're trying to compartmentalize this stuff to make sense of it. And that's usually when people underestimate the science, because it looks chaotic, especially in the aggressive campaigns where people are dealing with all these, aggressive techniques, threats, smear campaigns, break-ins, obvious surveillance, stuff like that. And it just seems so chaotic that, right away that people are trying to mess with your mind, and you have a tendency to underestimate the science that is going on in the sensitization and the gaslighting, which is that they're hijacking your brain. They are using trauma-based mind control to create associations and amalgamate themselves in the way that you process information. And, it depends on the level of, illumination that the individual has. But if you don't know what's going on, and by the way, that's why I make these videos, is to help people figure out what's happening to them if you never experienced this, is that, this stuff happens. A lot of the people that are in mental institutions or that have been cast off by, their community or whatever, some of those people that are walking around, and they're talking to themselves, or they get paranoid and you don't know what's going on. I used to run into them and I didn't really know. And then there's a few things that happened that I remembered after I started dealing with it. And I thought back and I'm like, that person was probably being driven nuts. That person was probably, that I thought was crazy, was probably a targeted individual, right? And so you can't underestimate that whole thing. And so, once you realize, how pervasive this stuff is and how compartmentalized it is, it really changes how you deal with it. Okay. So like I said, for new targets, they're going to probably underestimate it, especially if it's an aggressive campaign. Oh, these people are obviously trying to mess. Oh, you think you could drive me crazy? But they don't realize that it might be a, years or decades campaign that they're looking at, where they're going to turn it on, they're going to turn it off. They're going to turn it on, they're going to turn it off. You're on that roller coaster where people are dealing with you logically. They're, reacting in a predictable way that's not weird. There's no directed conversations. There's no, street theater. There's none of the unorthodox stuff. There's no sabotage. People are friendly, and then all of a sudden it gets weird, and then you're isolated, and people, become aggressive, or they become threatening, or whatever, or they start to exclude you from everything. And it flips back and forth. In the subtle campaign, it's like that, but it's so much more incremental, right? And I've talked about that. There's a lot of people out there who probably think they're suffering from schizophrenia, or maybe factitious disorder or whatever, and then you amalgamate in all the different facets that you deal with. Maybe a perp here, a perp there, and infiltrator here, and infiltrator there. Then they end up saying something, or they end up in a psychiatrist's office. And by the way, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving medical advice, nor am I condemning psychiatry or psychology. But the problem is that the modus operandi of organized stalking and harassment is designed in a way to discredit the victim and follow that DSM criteria to diagnose someone with a persecutory delusion, a delusion of grandeur, or maybe even some type of mental disorder like schizophrenia or factitious disorder, bipolar, or whatever. A lot of the individuals who are a little more lucky will get that complex post-traumatic diagnosis, which of course obviously applies to every targeted individual. You're going to have PTSD. And so for a lot of individuals who are reacting to this stuff, they see the mechanism, they see the triggers, they see what's going on, and they also see that they could be part of the scenario. And getting to be more specific is that, and I think it was one of my earlier videos, it might still be up there, I think it was called 80-20 or something like that, 80% or something like that. And the framework around that video involved explaining how individuals are sensitized, whether it be, things in their environment that they are made aware of within the framework of their harassment, whether it's, color combinations or keywords or phrases or, symbology, or different, things. Maybe somebody's going to be whistling a particular way, or coughing, or jingling their keys, or other things are going to be involved in the framework. Just stuff that just would be crazy to people who'd not been subjected to it. And I've talked about the themes that, all these things kind of work together in a place to create that crescendo effect for a targeted individual, that once they are awakened to this whole thing and their environment is flipped around, and they're subjected to that stuff, and they see it, because the sensitization allows them, with the subjective stimuli, to react to the themes that are out there that might not have anything to do with them, and also the people that use that technique that involve things like color combinations or whatever, where people are like, well, traffic is after me. And the problem is that they do that. They do harass people in traffic, right? But, then what's the issue? Just like all the other stuff that targets deal with, the major issue is the 80%, right? And so if I hit you really hard, we talked about this before, that the onslaught of that campaign can happen to targeted individuals for years, or maybe even really heavy for 2 weeks, and then they back off, or 2 months, or whatever the campaign is. When they traumatize the individual, they hit them very hard. They might even hurt them, or poison them, or drug them, or do something nasty, or who knows. And because it can get really bad. And then what? Well, the target is invaded. Your mind is invaded. You're processing information differently. You're in fear for your life or whatever. And so a lot of the things that you're going to be, especially if you're a new target, a lot of the things, or 80%, more specifically 80%, and it can be this way, or it can just, like I said, it can be aggressive to where it's all real. And there's just, a very small amount of things that are actually legitimate in your life. They'll do it. They'll do it that way. But it can flip, and we'll assume, for the sake of argument, that they come in, they hit the targeted individual very, very hard, and they subject them to that environmental tyranny. And then what? Well, now 80% of the stuff that you're worried about as a target, not only by people who have not experienced this, be considered irrational fear, but it would look mentally ill. and for the target and for other targets. And I see a lot of people fighting and trying to minimize each other, and you just don't know who's real. There's so many shills and everything in the target individual community. But the whole thing is that you have to get it through your head that it's okay for a target to have that type of apprehension and fear and paranoia, because it's natural. It's not natural for someone who's been, subjected to the regular environmental tyranny that's in the world, that's not been gang stalked or organized stalking, does not apply. For them, it would be crazy. It would be irrational. But for you, as a target and individual dealing with this stuff, it's not. And so that's an issue now. Why? Because it probably is true that you are, maybe, like I said, depending on your situation, you might be paranoid about things you don't have to be paranoid about. That's how it's designed. Here's the trick, though. They'll do that. They'll hit the target and individual really hard. They'll use all that stuff. They'll sensitize them. They'll gaslight them. And then they'll stop. And now you're supposed to internalize all that, misappropriation or all the speculation that you have according to the sequelae of the environmental tyranny that you've been subjected to. You're paranoid. You're overreacting. Boy, you need some medication. Maybe you should go talk to somebody. But really, for you, it's natural. And one of the first things that you have to realize as a targeted individual, when you find yourself reading into something or you're wrong, and it's going to happen, it is going to happen. It is designed that way. Don't beat yourself up, and don't let anybody else beat you up. One of the things that I've noticed about the shills out there in the targeted individual community is that not only will they minimize the target or try to, it's one thing to be, constructive and say, yeah, okay, maybe that's what's going on with you. And that's okay. But you'll notice that a lot of the individuals will say, well, I don't know, man, here's what's probably going on. And it's like, well, how the hell would you know? And when people are presumptuous, that's a red flag. And that's why when people tell their story on my channel or I read posts about something and I'm like, oh, no, there's other people. No, that's not what it is. You're crazy. You're paranoid. You're tripping. And it's like, for all I know, it's exactly what's going on. Right. So that's a red flag. People minimize you. And then on top of that, on top of the emotional manipulation that comes out of that, because usually the shills will get close to you. They'll be your buddies, or they'll be the people in the comments who are like, oh, you did, and that was such a good thing that you said, or whatever. And then they'll start disagreeing with you, or they'll be the contrarian in your mind. And the thing about invading someone's psyche in gang stalking, and that's what they're doing, by the way, is not only are they sensitizing you and gaslighting you, but it's almost like they're creating a little psychological Arcturian in your brain, right? It's like the stuff that targets deal with when it comes to, the street theater and all that, but more specifically, even the electronic harassment and some of the demonic stuff where you're hearing voices, or you have, that psychic driving effect to where there's certain things that are going on that are just kind of, it's like listening to a song one too many times. It just keeps bouncing around in your brain. That's the whole point of psychic driving. That's the whole point of subjecting a targeted individual to environmental tyranny over, not only short-term, intense attack, asymmetrical warfare, but for long periods of time, to ingrain those things into their mind and then just back off and invite them to the barbecue. And what's wrong, Bill? What's the matter? Are you paranoid? And so the gaslighting is exponential within that framework. The thing you have to realize is that it's natural. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that the trick that I mentioned earlier is when you finally figure it out, right? And you're like, oh, I get it now. And a lot of targets will get to that place and they're like, this is more of a psychological thing or whatever. And they'll kind of go back to their life the way it was, and blam, they'll do it again, just when you thought it was safe, right? And of course, that goes into that roller coaster where a targeted individual are led into a place where they're afraid to try, and then they're accused, and then they go around in this little circle and they try to gain authority in their environment, and it's the cycle the death cycle, right? The circle of, vortex death is that you're trying to gain homeostasis, you're trying to gain environmental authority, you're trying to process the information, and there's things you need, there's things that you want, there's things you're trying to get, there are things that they won't let you get to, and then you just go up and down and around and around, and then it becomes demoralizing to the place where targets are, they become fatalistic, or they are so offended by the environmental tyranny that they do something that is not a solution, right? Because why? Because the whole thing is basically geared towards getting you into a place not only where they can gaslight you and manipulate you emotionally, but just give you to a place where you're so demoralized that you do something stupid and accuse yourself and believe all the gaslighting that's around you, not only the stuff that would suggest that they have the right to do it, even if you have something in your past as a target. And I've mentioned that before, that they'll try to use that and say that somehow it's okay for them to do this stuff. And it's not. It's not okay. Okay. And you have to stick to that very solid foundation biblically and logically and within the laws of the land. Remember that this stuff is illegal. That organized stalking, the stuff that we're talking about, the gang stalking, all that stuff, whether it's electronic harassment, whether people breaking into your house, whether they're sabotaging you, whether they're, doing this, it's illegal. It's absolutely illegal. So that, for them to try to gaslight someone and say, we have the right to do this, that's obviously not true. And you have to realize that. So, not only can you anchor yourself to those aggressive situations, but you can anchor yourself to the foundation to beat the gaslighting, that the things that are being suggested within the environmental tyranny, not only that, but from the people that become involved in this, it's not okay. It's not okay. And eventually they're going to pay for it. Okay. Don't be fooled about that one. And the targets that are gaslighted and believe, that stuff, they are the ones that get into solution mode. They are the ones that do something that is not a solution. And, heaven forbid that we get to that place. And I am going to have a guest on tonight. And it looks like we do have someone possibly in. We have someone, and I'm going to put you on. Remember the rules before I put you on, though. No swearing, no promoting any other religions, no mentioning other channels, no mentioning anything but your first name or initial. Welcome to
Hi.
the show. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
And would you like to add to the subject matter or share an experience with your gang stalking, organized stalking, harassment?
Well, you've talked to me before.
Yeah, no, I recognize, but I here, the thing is that there are a lot of new people who are listening to this. So go ahead and give us what you got.
Yeah, well, where I talked about like last time it was like over fake friends, fake relationships, people entering my life with hidden agendas and all that kind of thing.
That's a deadly one because that really demoralizes you, doesn't it? You just don't want to try anymore.
Yeah, because it's also like friends from a long time ago or from childhood even that you've known like for 20 years, 30 years even. And that you always trusted them and visited them and whatever, and all kinds of things you normally did with them.
So
And after,
yeah, that's interesting. Let me ask you this, since we're on that real quick. It's a lot of people will process that and say, man, maybe somebody got to him. Maybe somebody got to him. Or the other fearful thing is that they knew the whole time, and it's just like they were there, and then they finally decided to, stick the knife in. What do you think?
yeah, what I found out about one friend is was like he had some weird paintings at home, and it was like witches and all kinds of yeah, maybe satanistic things,
Right.
so to say. And then I because it also has to do with Freemasons.
Okay.
And like a friend all before, yeah, I got like before they all played out this whole story, like like in 1 week they crashed my life or something. A friend like gave me a Freemason coin and all kinds of weird presents, like to yeah, in a positive way, you know.
So
because it was
do you think they were trying to recruit you, or do you think you were trying to sensitize you at that point to that whole thing?
yeah, it's really double because I had like an employer that was a Freemason also, which I didn't know at the time. I told about stealing my wheels from my car, all those kind of things, and I visited him like years later, and I trusted him because he was my old employer. And later he said, "Well, like, and we also worship Satan." He said, and I was like, "Okay, that was not the goal, for meeting you." And later I found out, like, okay, that could have been the whole problem because if more people around me support those kind of things, it was just an attack on me like that.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because you're dealing with a lot of themes that a lot of targets have dealt with. I've dealt with every theme that you've mentioned. Not
Hmm.
only the especially the witch thing that was real popular back in the '90s and even before that. When a lot of people go back into the Aleister Crowley thing and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
so let me ask you this: so you had that theme and everything, but have you? I mean, have you had an experience with something that you thought it really involved that kind of thing, or was that just there to just kind of freak you out? You think?
And also the scare, of course, it's like scare tactics, of course,
Right.
and it was like a neighbor because they all put like uh, women around me only because they can just call the police and say anything they want,
Right.
and then you're the problem, like directly. And they also had like a campaign in my country, like for for suicide of killing women, men killing women. It was all like on the news, and so they used that also, like oh, you see, he's the villain and whatever. And I was
Okay.
like, okay,
Have you ever had like have you because here's the stuff that I dealt with. It was like there was a theme of that, and there was all this witchy talk and everything, and I thought it was just ridiculous. But then I would catch people doing stuff, and I would find things, and I would find the things the artifacts and stuff like that that had to do with it,
yeah,
and I would catch people doing that. Okay, go ahead.
it's true. Like when I found out like it had something to do with maybe artifacts or presents people gave you, I start looking for everything people gave me, and it was like, oh, my mother gave me a snake. Oh, and the other gave me a lizard. And oh no,
So
and,
they've this, yeah. Did they say anything like they wanted you to hold it or touch it or keep it close to you or anything like that?
it was in my living room. So, and I had
Yeah.
like it was a lizard from my father, a lizard from my mother, like or a reptile, and then a friend came with exactly the same lizard, only smaller, because
So
of
it was
course,
almost a reptilian type of
yeah,
framework that they were trying
reptilian.
to. Yeah.
Because I used to have like reptilians myself.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
like uh, the bearded dragon from Australia. If you don't know, if you know that, but
Wow.
and yeah, so it all has connections. I don't know, and people know I read about conspiracies, reptilians, all those kind of things. They know, they just know that I'm interested in those kind of subjects, and nobody told me anything about it because they're involved themselves.
Yeah. Some people will find like the stuff that I found had to do with literal rituals. I would catch them doing seances or trying to astral project weird stuff that I
I
thought was
never,
just. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I never thought about it that anyone around me would do those kind of things until I also find out, like in my mother's house, she had like a sign on the wall, and it was like, okay, that looks like witchcraft. And then I said, what does it mean? Why did you paint it on your wall? And I was like, it looks
Yeah,
like,
I think you mentioned that before.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird, yeah, to deal with all this because you're like, who the hell are these people? And then you start, trying to figure out how they all, are getting together or whatever.
And
And then you, yeah,
they all tried to get me to another country, like with a fake love, which I told before too, and everyone just knew about it. Like, oh, we're gonna fake it all and tell him nothing and just let him go by himself.
my gosh.
Yeah, because they all convinced me like for maybe 2 years or something, and then I thought about it when I yeah at least found out about some of these things. Then okay, it's not it's not good to go all by myself, because they can do anything in some countries to you and just leave you there for dead
Yeah,
or
yeah, because
or
there's
worse.
all kinds of things that can happen. What, and I don't know where you're talking about, but some of those prisons you get in the third world countries, you don't come out of them. You know.
Yeah, and and that's what they can do too, because they can put something in your bag or just arrest you for nothing and then say that there was something in your bag if they have someone overseas,
Yeah.
in the police or whatever it may be. Because it's also started with I was like thinking about survival and all those kind of things to buy survival equipment, and I bought everything from the army, like original stuff.
Well, yeah, you were building
Yeah,
houses or something like that, weren't you?
yeah, that was the goal. Also, like a wooden house, and I built like half of it because I was just by myself, and it was like more for the experience. If I could do it, it's not like if I could finish it like
So you
in a
were seeking,
short
you
time.
were kind of breaking free from the whole, rat race and trying to become independent and everything. And it wasn't just gang stalking; it was
No, no, no.
literally just independence.
It goes much further because I was already like gang stalked for all my life, which I didn't know because everyone who was gang stalking were not strangers. They were all like in my home.
So you weren't just but you weren't just trying to learn how to do survival to go out in the middle of nowhere to get away. You were literally interested in this as a way of life. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Yeah.
that was true because but the people I stayed with, they were all like informed before I came and all those kind of things.
Oh gosh,
So it,
yeah.
it was all set up like, and they let me do my thing and support me, and I was like, oh well, having a good time, which wasn't true, of course. Later I found out. But I also had like some special things. Like there was some rainy day, and I had like there were like flying ants everywhere, like millions of them. It was like a hot country, so and all the people there they were getting attacked by it, and I was just sitting on a chair, like there was some kind of miracle around me that they wouldn't touch me.
Oh my gosh.
And later on, I also had like an experience. I was sitting on a chair in front of that house. I was like chilling, smoking, whatever, and just how do you call it? Colibri. Oh shit! How do you call it? Like the bird that hangs still in the air.
Okay.
Oh, yes, the bird
Yeah.
was just hanging in front of me, like standing still, like in front of me, like for I don't know, 10 seconds maybe, and it would fly away, and it was just like
So you had
somewhere.
all these. That's interesting because a lot of targets, and I've had it too. It's like when it rains, it pours. There's all these weird coincidences that don't seem to be possible. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, and also I saw somewhere in the comments that oh, some people they will make you think you're special or you're not special, and they make you think like you're special. But now I know there was like much more behind all of this. So like they knew when I was born that there was something different about me,
Hmm.
because I
I
also
I don't know. I mean, who knows exactly what's going
yeah,
on in this
that's the
scenario?
whole thing they're not telling me.
Yeah. You wonder that because it's like, why would I be any different from anybody else? Right?
Yeah, but if there are so many people involved in all of this and
You do sound
interested,
you do sound different though, not in a bad way, in a good way. And
yeah,
so
thanks.
you're no, I'm seriously. I mean, a lot of people don't know how to do that kind of thing, and the motivations that you have to be independent and learn how to survive
But the
and
whole
even
thing,
get into carpentry and everything. That's a noble task, and so I would imagine that's exponential in your existence. Let me ask you this: it sounds like you've had a lot of people stab you in the back, and it sounds like you were set up in
hmm
an exponential way to where even people trying to to convince you of certain things to leave,
hmm
and who knows
yeah,
exactly what. But let me ask you this: has there been anyone? Because this is something that a lot of targets deal with. Has there been anyone that hasn't screwed you over?
Uh,
No, it's hard
yeah,
to think. It's hard to think of it. Is that that's not good?
I thought about that question because I was throwing everybody from my Facebook, and I was thinking, oh, this one was normal to me, or oh, this one was nice to me. Oh, but I also had, of course, I've done some bad things in my life too, like not really bad things, but okay, not so nice things to other people because they screwed me over, and I took some kind of revenge, or I don't know. So it could have also been like that in some instances that could have been the problem, which I later found out. But I thought, oh well,
The
maybe could
plausible excuses that might not have anything to do with the campaign. Yeah.
yeah. Like it was my problem, so they could blame it on me. Instead, they were like stalking me all my life, and then I did one thing, and they can use it against you.
Yeah, well, but yeah, the plausible deniability doesn't really line up with the environmental tyranny that you're talking about because the
Hmm.
exponential harassment is, like I said, that's why I asked you. It's like for a lot of targets, it doesn't matter what relationship they try to get into. It's like they won't let you have any, you know.
Hmm. And I
So if
also had
that,
like the police that what came in my house here one time, and they were saying like, oh, you have to write a book if you've got so many stories and all those kind. And I was like, oh yeah, you have to write a book
so now
because it
you're just you're basically just conjuring all this stuff up,
the
making
fact
stories. Yeah.
the fact is that I just know that they know everything. Like I got like a huge dossier, like a file. That's a fact. It can't be any different because um, with the conversations they had with me, and when they came into my house, like they said things like they were like planned beforehand. That's
Mm.
surely. And also, like when it all started, I found out that my house was like yeah, electromagnetically influenced.
Do
Like
you
they were
think they set that up, or do you think there was something that happened
yeah,
after
yeah,
that?
yeah. They just doing that from the neighbors, or I've got an empty house here, and I got some device to pick it up. And then one time I found out, like I woke up in the middle of the night sweating, and I was just checking the device, and it was like 30 times as
Oh
high as
my
a normal.
gosh. Yeah, you were getting hit with something, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
So I never saw that again because, and just people knew that I was figuring it out.
You're not the regular target. A
No,
lot of people wouldn't have that, information.
they just put me in some nightmare. That's the whole thing.
My
And
God.
just like I'm talking now, I'm 100% for sure, even though it's on the internet, they're all listening to me like
Well,
24
they
hours.
might be, they might listen to it later. You don't know.
Because
We can't know that, right?
because no, not later, just at the moment. Because
Okay.
I'm in apartments, and all the apartments are all like one wall from each other. It's like directly like a flat building, only like on the ground.
So they let you know, basically.
Oh, and I got a neighbor that's like for 2 years. She has been like the quietest ever. You've never heard a thing from her, and she's like spying like every day. Only
Mm,
she's just put here for only for that,
mm,
100%. And they, of course, they deny everything, and they just said, "Oh, we're doing fine. Oh yeah, nothing wrong." And they
mm.
called the police on me like several times. So if they hear something that's too loud, so I I flipped sort of like
Yeah,
one
but
day.
you're not. Are you? Is it justified? Are you blurring music or something like that? Or is it
No,
unjustified?
I used to play some music, but not like to irritate them, just for my own fun.
They never
Uh,
bothered to
no, no, no,
ask you to turn it down, or they just called the cops, huh?
I always wondered why no one came at my door.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the
And
point I'm
now I
making.
know.
Why
They
it's
get
not that
called.
hard to do. It's not like
I think they
you're
call the cops
unreasonable.
every. I think they call the cops every day.
Wow. Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure.
very suspicious. Yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
can never know if they did it. So
Yeah, it's all redacted, right?
and I went like upstairs to my neighbor, and she's always quiet too. and they never complained about the other neighbors that were like doing the noise campaigns. And it's also with it was a full moon, and it was every time it was a full moon. And then I thought, oh, it's witchcraft or voodoo they're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah. It's yeah. That always no. You're right. And
and you
then
can
you're going to make the correlation between that whole thing. Do you think that's what it is?
sure. And it's also like if you go to the police and you're saying things like that, like, oh, it's that, and they're doing witchcraft. Oh yeah, right.
They're sacrificing the babies under the full moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
You're crazy at that point,
Uh-huh.
right? You're nuts. No,
Yeah.
that's true. You can see, it could be one or the other. Let me ask you this: as a target who's experienced this stuff, and with the mental fortitude that you have, and obviously, basically, gathering enough evidence to know and cancel out the gaslighting and a lot of the manipulation, but at the same time, you're still subjected to the environmental tyranny. Have you gotten to the place where you feel comfortable with your own company and starting to take environmental authority in that aspect?
You mean like if
Are
I'm
you
comfort?
trying to, in other words, are you trying to re-enter society and figure out a way to reintegrate, or are you realizing that this is something
They made it
where,
impossible.
right? That's what I
Like
mean. Are
they
you
like they cut me off from everything, you know.
right? So, have you gotten to the place where you have learned to deal with that in the sense that you have, realized the environment? Obviously, you mentioned that, but now you can use that to your advantage. Have you had any good effects out of that?
No, there's no real advantage to any of this because they wanted me gone. They wanted to me to leave my house or get arrested or
But you
every.
see, you see the evil out there. You see what's really happening, and the advantage of that is to at least at the very least know that this stuff is going on. There's a lot of people that don't know. They believe that, like I mentioned earlier in the video, that these people are just crazy or they're just, the mentally ill or whatever. But you know the truth. You know the
Yeah,
truth.
that's true, but it's not easily acceptable. Like
No.
if you know, like if you step out the door, oh, there's the camera. Oh, I have
Okay,
to.
let me ask you this, because of here's the point I'm making. Because of the environmental tyranny that you've experienced and all these people who have turned against you and all the stuff that has been, involved in the manipulation of your environment, you've realized, at least at this point, you should have, people are very easily manipulated, and that's unfortunate. But now that you know that, isn't that kind of I don't know, isn't that liberating a little bit? It was for me.
Yeah, if it wasn't such a big problem that some friends told me some weird things, like
Because the society is going to tell you, you got to go live your life. You got to enter. You got to be part of the system. You got to be part, but you don't. You really
yeah,
don't. Yeah.
I also got my mother told me like, oh, you have to move and you have to do things again, and I was like, oh yeah, and she knows everything that's going on.
Interesting. So you didn't even say anything, and they're telling you got to do this, that, and the other. Interesting.
hmm Yeah,
Wow.
even like they almost know what's in my fridge.
Wow. Tell me about that one.
hmm And it was also like in the first week I found out like they poisoned my wine or something I had in the fridge.
What happened? What happened?
I was like feeling not so well. I was like having cramps and all kind of things, and I didn't even call the police, and the police
Okay,
showed.
hold on. So you correlated that with the wine, and so
hmm
you must have started experiencing that along with you know, in other words, the activity. Is that correct?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it was later that the police showed up at my door without. I didn't even call them, and
My
then
gosh.
they had an ambulance with them because they all knew. You know,
Yeah, wait a minute. Are you saying they knew?
yeah,
So
it was
you
all planned.
wow. So you drank this. You start having cramps and physical sequelae, and
hmm
the cops just showed up. You didn't even call the cops. You didn't say anything
Yeah,
to anyone.
and they just invaded my house.
Oh my gosh.
and like saying from, oh, do you think you're poisoned? Oh, you're just crazy. You're making things
Oh,
up.
wow.
And then
Wow.
they put a needle in my finger to test
Oh my
me or
God.
whatever for my blood and my blood
You
pressure.
didn't say a word to anyone and they just showed up. Oh my gosh. Really?
They just gave me a trauma on purpose.
Oh, man.
And then
That's,
I thought, oh, someone must have called, and
yeah.
and afterwards I asked like the neighbors, oh, did you see that everyone was in my street? Like, did you
Oh
see police
man.
cars or ambulance or whatever? And just all denied it. And then
No,
I
I've heard a lot of stories like that, and I've heard targets. It's like they'll run to a hotel room, and it'll be real intense, and they'll be getting attacked, and then they'll, you can hear the people in the other room, banging on the walls, stuff like that, and then the individual is so, overwhelmed by what's going on, they'll start thinking about suicide. I heard that from one of the targets I talked to, and you can literally hear them. I don't think he's going to do it. And it's almost like they're following you around, and they know.
and
It's
like I
creepy.
told you the last time also, like I went to a museum, military museum. I got some coffee, and then I got the same symptoms. Like I was half like cramping, dying, whatever, and it lasted like for I don't know, maybe 2 days, 3 days,
What? Oh gosh, dude.
because it
Okay,
all has to
now
do with
hold on.
yeah,
So tell us about this. What were the symptoms? Because let's break this down a little bit. It could have been heavy metal. It could have.
yeah.
What was the symptoms?
I looked it up like on internet for the symptoms, and could have been some heavy metal like thallium or something they call it.
Yeah. Okay. So hold on. So did you have like diarrhea, cramping?
I
Uh,
did.
did you have like neuropathy symptoms and stuff like that? Delayed, usually delayed when it comes to that. What happened?
It was like going to the toilet a lot. That's
Right.
not
Okay.
with
Yeah.
diarrhea, but
That,
only.
and that's typical for that at first, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when I drove home, like for maybe 2 hours, I had to stop like 3 times.
Okay, so you had cramps, you had a lot of stomach pain, and
Yeah,
then you're probably feeling very tired and so on and so forth. And then usually when it comes to that, dude, I've looked up this. I know what you're talking about. You're not making this up. And then usually the onset of the symptoms of neuropathy and stuff like that usually happen within a couple of days or beyond that, and then hair loss sometimes depending on the
yeah.
dosage. So what happened to you?
Yeah. Afterwards, not so much. So I thought like it was like a low doses or of something like
So
to scare.
it was a lot of it. Did you have the neuropathy symptoms at all?
Yeah, I had like spasms.
Well, no, neuropathy would be like
Oh,
tingling and sharp pains and numbness and stuff like that
yeah.
within
Oh,
you.
numbness. Yeah, I had like I was sitting behind my computer. I was like falling asleep, like I wasn't sleepy.
Okay.
You
Usually
know.
though, usually you'll feel that in your face, in your hands, your feet. A lot of times, and some targets, like we're talking about the 80%. Sometimes their physical, sequelae is caused by things they're eating and physicals, and then they'll play into that whole thing. But there's no real chance that was going on. It sounds like more of a
Uh,
type of covert poisoning for you. And
yeah,
so because it's happening incidentally when you're taking candy from strangers, right?
yeah. Multiple people did it like in the
Yeah.
same week. I think. Like I went to the museum. I went there, and I had it like before. And then suddenly, a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, showed up, and she had like a whole bag, like with groceries, and like, oh, I'm gonna cook for you. And I was like, okay, you
Oh,
never.
yippee! Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I thought, okay, well, that's great.
yeah. I'm not
And
quite healed up yet. You sure? You want to let
yeah, yeah.
me?
So, and
Oh
then I
God!
ate it, and I was like, okay, now I got even more
Oh man!
cramps, and
Oh
and
God!
and then yeah, of course, I said it to her like, oh yeah, if I would do that, I would take care of you better, like if that you're gone at once, you know.
Wow. So you've dealt with some serious infiltration. A lot of targets. I mean, it's not only the thing that wow. I mean, so you're drinking wine. and somebody calls the cops and you didn't even say anything and they all seem to know that's creepy, that's beyond anything. And then now you're having other things that happen where the same symptoms are appearing and it just happens to be other people who are giving you food. That can't be you. I mean, how could you write something like that off?
Yeah, it's
Right?
also like they were keeping track on me on my phone, of course. So if I have just normal contact
Yeah,
with
you might be
people,
Googling stuff to try to figure out if you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you, right?
yeah, or I was like having a conversations with people like, oh, you can come by or this and that, or
Uh,
making a picture of something. But if you know they're just looking on your phone and they can see your pictures or anything that's
so it's
on it,
directed conversation 101 at that
yeah,
point.
they can just use it against you. Or maybe I could have taken a picture of my wine, so they would know there's an open bottle of wine in my fridge.
Jeez. So do you have anyone that you can I mean, is there anyone who hadn't, like I said, getting back to the original question, is there anyone that you could really trust right now? Because there's a lot of targets out there. I think I'd put myself within that framework that
I think they
it's
all have some kind of non-disclosure
or
agreement.
they can be either that or they can just be manipulated, right?
Yeah, it's like double.
Right.
Some are paid, and I also saw like everyone I contacted went on vacation.
For me, and here's how, and I just, we have to put this out there for people who are listening to this. And it's not that you have to assume that everybody's all in the Freemasons or witchcraft or anything. It's that people can be manipulated. And for the intense type of scenario that you're dealing with and the stuff that I've dealt with and other targets out there, what I do is rather than try to figure it out, look at the data. It's almost like looking at a stock portfolio or a stock chart. It's like, where are the patterns? Where is the hard evidence? Rather than
Yes.
speculate, it is literally a reality for you now. And so, in other words, what I'm getting at is similar to investing money in the stock market. Is that you have to have protocols. You don't run off emotions. You don't run off of hunches.
Yeah.
You don't run off of something that is going to be, for you to try to figure this out because that's part of driving you nuts.
And that's
And
the whole
so,
thing I was
yeah,
working on. Like now you're saying the stock market, but I was investing in crypto.
that's
And
scary. They can steal that stuff. Did you do an ETF or did you have a cold wallet?
no, it was just like a platform that's trustable.
Oh, so it was a third party storage. Okay.
But the
Yeah.
whole thing, like all the people I knew, I advised them too, and they was like my friends for 20 years. So I thought I could trust them, you know? And they screwed me all over. So they
Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
they knew exactly what I was doing, and my computer was hacked, so they could just see what I had. Like how much money there was
No,
on
that's
it.
that's interesting. And I've talked about that before with targets. Anybody's listening out there, online banking and stuff like that is very risky. And this is a good example of that. And what I do is I do in-person transactions only. So
Okay.
I had to get rid of all the, you can communicate with the brokerage. You can communicate with, you can authorize things from a particular account that you have, but you want most of your stuff to be in a place where, unless you make it available in person at your bank,
Mhm.
and then do a transaction to a specific facility that is listed, maybe paying loans or maybe going into a brokerage account, that if anybody tries to do anything else, it's over. They
Yeah,
shut it down. Yeah.
it, for me, it was just I was too enthusiastic about the
So
cryptocurrencies.
what happened was you were just trying to be normal and you had a password thing, and it's like you said, they're watching you. They might install something on your whatever you're doing, and
Yeah,
then the keystroke, and then they can take your stuff.
yeah.
Really?
Later, also thought like, okay, so a friend was here visiting me. I could have gone to the toilet, maybe installed some spyware when I
Yeah,
was
that's all they got
gone.
to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. No, you're
and
right. That's why Des just put that out there again. And this is a warning, and I've seen that before. If you're going to set up your bank account, you're going to set up a brokerage or whatever you're going to do, set that as in-person transactions only and let them do the stuff online separate from your phone or your computer or whatever.
But
And
the
then,
other thing,
yeah,
also like what I think they did, like copied my passport because I had like to scan my passport once. So I think they did like identity theft, which I didn't see anything from yet. But
yeah, they're gonna do that. And that's
yeah,
another thing. You want to have multiple, maybe even apps or different things involving your credit report. You're gonna notice it right away. If
yeah,
somebody
but
tries to open an account in your name, or they're going to say, I had that happen. It took a year to get it off there. Somebody out in Ohio tried to open up something in my name, and I was on it like white on rice. Okay,
mhm,
but they told me right away. So
okay,
yeah, you don't think they won't. This might not be involved in gang stalking, but it might be. But there's a
yeah,
lot of people. There's a lot of data breaches and all that stuff out there. So you have to take double protocols to get around this stuff.
but it could have been like they're using it somewhere in another country, which I can't see anything about.
Well, I don't know.
That's the whole thing, or
Usually the three credit platforms would. Usually, if somebody's trying to do something, you can figure that out. But
yeah, it's hard to see.
well, you're in a different part of the world, so I don't know.
And it's also that the same friend that's like the hacker. He worked for military. Um, he uses dark web. He's a scammer. I don't know. He did everything, and he was copying me. And of course, when I said anything about it, it was like, "Oh yeah, what you're saying? Yeah, you're just crazy, and you have to go there and there because you're just making things up." And yeah,
No,
he and his
that's the scariest part about it. When you get out there in the cyber, uh, yeah, there's guys out there. They can pull out a lot. They can hack your phone. They can use an email. They can use a phone number. They can cross reference. They can do a lot of things, and they can mess you up. And you have to take very strict. And it's even when I go to the bank and stuff like that. Why would you not want to do online banking? I don't have to tell them why.
Mhm.
I don't have to
Yeah,
tell them that. All they have to say is I don't feel comfortable. This is how I'm going to set it up, and this is how it's going to be done. And you can either like it or not.
I
And then you have it deposited into an account, usually your savings account, that is not accessible for online transactions. Period, unless you come in and transfer
mhm.
whatever amount you need to. And then
Yeah,
if you don't do it, it's like what you're talking about. It is very, and hopefully they'll get caught. Hopefully the bastards will get caught. You
yeah.
know, so you set it up that way, and they have to play around a lot more.
So I had like that one of the other fake friends. He was like paranoid mostly, so he didn't use like wireless paying and all those kind of things. And he even made a hole in his card, like so the antenna won't work, and all those kind of yeah things to get rid of it. But he's also the one who he played in the whole scheme. And I thought he was the only one that's left that wasn't involved, like you previously asked. So I can't think of anyone at the moment.
So there's no one that can't be either manipulated or infiltrated. Unfortunately, targets deal with that, and I've talked about that many times. Is that so? That's getting back to the point. Is that it seems depressing, but you need to see the fundamental reality that is behind that whole thing to your advantage, to the reality of where we are, and then work from there. Because it's like I've mentioned this before. People try to, I want to get back to my life. I want to get back to me. Okay, get back to what?
Yeah.
Okay, get back to what? Because it
Hmm.
was never there. Okay,
Hmm.
assuming the environment allows you within individuals, within your landscape, or that you're interacting with, to not be dysregulated or manipulated to turn against you, wonderful. But that's not what targets are dealing with. They are dealing with things where people are being manipulated. They're
Yeah,
being
that's
spiritually manipulated. They're being technologically manipulated. They're being, maybe money or whatever, like you were talking about. And that's reality.
and that's
All
also
this
the
other
weird.
stuff is just a bunch of baloney, right?
Hmm.
And
That's
so you
also
need,
the
the advantage. is to be within the framework of that fundamental reality and give opportunity in the sense that they can't gaslight you. And it's just like I said, if you follow protocols and you don't have to buy into the gas, because a lot of times they'll say, well, you just don't trust people. Do you trust me? You trust me? You got to be very careful how you deal with people like that, because they'll try to draw you out. It's like, what do you mean? Why would I have to do something like that? And then you use examples that refute that type of gaslighting, like, well, I guess we just get rid of all the nuclear weapons then, huh? Because
Yeah,
we don't need it. I don't need a spare tire either.
yeah. The
No,
gaslighting is
yeah, I don't need
most.
any of those. I don't need. I can I just leave my doors open because I'm just, yeah. It's just like your neighbors wouldn't do something like that. Well, no, I didn't mean that. It's like, well, what'd you mean then, right? The gaslighting is exponential on this whole thing, and a lot of targets will be called out, and they'll use that type of, because you have experienced intense attacks. So if you say anything, you're just going to be paranoid, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also used by my own parents and my brother, and they all like gaslighted me, like, oh, you think, oh, the CIA is behind all this, and oh yeah, uh, all those kind of groups and all those people are following you, and
Yeah,
so
yeah, they're gonna do. Yeah, but the whole idea is to get you to react and get emotional, and
mhm.
then try to stand up for yourself where they have plausible deniability, and you're just by yourself, and that doesn't work because then they can really kick it off, right?
And they can
That's the
also
yeah.
like saying, oh, you got no proof for anything you're saying, and that's the whole for them. That's the whole point. Like they can
Right.
use it
Oh yeah,
again and again and again.
plausible deniability all the way.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man,
So
you got a great testimony, and we are towards the end of the show. And I'm going to
mhm.
go ahead and let you can say whatever you wanted. But after that, if is there anything else, and we can have you on as many times as you like to come in. I'd love to have you in here. But go ahead and say what you're going to say, and then without breaking the rules, go ahead and give some
Mhm.
advice as a very intense and intelligent target, a hard
Yeah,
target.
yeah, because
What
it's
people can do, maybe to gain some environmental authority, and also just to not be gaslighted and manipulated by this whole thing.
yeah. That's sometimes I'm just wondering, like, oh, how can people have a normal life like in this reality I'm seeing, because I'm living in the same street as those people, the rest of the people that's involved here, because it's like half my street. And now I know it's like police is involved, criminals are involved, like, and now I know it's like they taking over the half the street and they don't want me here. And that's also the thing that why this is happening.
So, in other words, trying to get back to something that is not there, you reference normal, for
Yeah,
you
normal.
is not realistic, because that's because you're dealing with the real reality behind that false normal, right?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and that's for them. It's like the conspiracy reality. Like,
Yeah,
you're
you're just crazy. You're just nuts. Yeah.
hmm even though they know all about
But
it,
you have
and
to get back there somehow, right? You have to figure this out somehow, even though there's not one single person that can't be manipulated to be turned against you, and that's not realistic,
but
right?
separate from this subject, like, okay, this is the gang stalking, but you can also see it what's happening in the world, like every subject now at the moment. Like, okay, the war, we have scandals around celebrities, like
There's other
governments.
examples that bolster what you're talking about. Exactly.
Yeah, because it's like that's the complete picture, which people don't even see yet, and that's where they're
Mhm.
trying to fool all the people, and that's why they try to stop me in warning other people also. So it comes from all kinds of groups, government. I don't
So it's
know.
not just you're making a point here, and just to illustrate to people out there who are not necessarily catching on to what this caller is talking about, is it's not just him. This stuff is all over the place, and there's cognitive dissonance. There's disconnects everywhere. It's not just his story. It's not just my story. It's not just your story. There's a lot of things that don't make sense out there, and it's about damn time people woke up. And if nothing else, if you're a target, don't believe it. Okay, because because
and
people are going
also
to say
like
you're overreacting, you're crazy. But there's obvious disconnects all over the place, right?
and also like the gang stalkers are being stalked, that kind of thing, you know. Not all of them, but some of them are just like they don't even see it themselves. Like
They're being manipulated basically.
yeah, also like yeah, or threatened maybe, or in
Or
that
or you're
kind of
just
way.
scared or coerced into doing it. Yeah.
So it's like surveillance.
Interesting. No, you're a great caller, and I have you in as many times as you want to come in. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we take you off the stage?
Well, leave it at that.
Oh man, I love to have you in here, and I hope the best for you. I'm going to go ahead and take you off the stage now.
Yeah.
And another great call. Uh, and when you're dealing with this framework as a target, as someone who experiences organized stalking and harassment, the thing to remember is that the normal that everybody is trying to push on you is really not necessarily not only realistic, but it's not something that is there. It is there within the subjection of the environment according to the handlers within that environment that they have control over, which in targets is gang stalking and gaslighting and sensitization and sabotage and break-ins and directed conversations and trying to drive you insane or get you to doubt yourself or take you into the place where you believe because of that hijacking of your psychological and physiological mechanisms that you're just reading into everything. But the natural effect, getting back to the point of the video, is that trauma invasion into your mind is going to change how you process information. And yes, you will inevitably read into things. Yes, it is normal for someone like you, someone like the caller, who is experiencing exponential sabotage and environmental tyranny, to be apprehensive and paranoid. Okay, that's just normal. The people, right? The salient landscape that is around you, as this individual talked about, all the people around him or whatever, is for them, you're either a freak or they know about it, and it is like quicksand, and I've talked about that. Is that you move, you try to solve this, you try to get back to the normal that's not really there, of no fault of your own. You're just trying to find homeostasis, and you play into the whole strategy, right? You try to confront people. You try to compartmentalize these things and put it together in a logical framework that your brain will accept. It's like you're fighting your own brain, and they like that because that's what it is. They've invaded your psyche. They have taken you into a place of exponential, environmental tyranny, and now somehow it's your fault. Well, it's not. And I mentioned before that realizing what's really going on is part of it. Illumination as to what is really going on. Unfortunately, you're in a dispensation that is so accurate and real. It's not that you've entered into some kind of purgatory or hell or whatever. You've entered into reality, and you can see this stuff. It's almost like waking up in the Matrix, and you see these things going on, and a lot of people don't. And then the others who know about it, they're gonna capitalize on that and try to say you're crazy or whatever. And so for you to try to return to that normal that doesn't exist is a problem. Okay, you have to be realistic. And it's very painful. It's like I mentioned to this individual. Well, it's like, is there anybody You know, and I've done that. I've thought about that up in the middle of, in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning or whatever. It's like there's very few people. There's some of there's it's not everyone, but almost. And that's enough to discourage someone into not even trying. But really what you have to do is realize, the frailty of the framework that is around you and the people that you're putting your hope in, and the faulty framework that somehow you have to put your faith in a humanity that is blind, being manipulated, and led down a path of not only, it's like the caller was talking about, they're being targeted too. They're being deceived as well. A lot of the people involved in your harassment, they believe these lies. They believe they're going to get away with it. They believe that this is the right choice. Oh, it's not. Okay, so in order to cancel out the effects, you have to realize that now you are experiencing that whole thing. Maybe, God willing, maybe other things can happen. Maybe if you're dealing with a government program, they'll back off eventually. Maybe you can get back to the place where people aren't being manipulated around you in the sense that you're dealing with this type of infiltration. But it doesn't matter. The point is it can happen. And so for you to try to return to something that is not there is a problem. Solution mode can become devastating. And to make it productive, you have to simplify these things and not become an aggressor. They're going to try to get you to become aggressive. They want you to confront people. They want you to look crazy. They want you to overreact. They want you to do something. And they also want you to believe their lies within the exponential framework of that gaslighting, whether we have the right to do it or you deserve it or, nothing's real or whatever they're trying to convince you of. That is the mind virus that comes out of the scientific equation of organized stalking, gang stalking, in the sense that it's only a natural reaction for you to be apprehensive. It's only a natural reaction for someone who has been attacked and stalked illegally, by the way, to have that supposed unwarranted suspicion and to become sensitized within the framework of that manipulation. But somehow it's supposed to be your fault. Somehow you're supposed to get back. Somehow you got to solve this whole thing. But really, what you need to do is take environmental authority, simplify your life, not react, cancel out the gaslighting, realize that you're being psychologically infiltrated and manipulated. And there is a motive. And they're needy. Oh, they are very needy. And that's one of the things that you can't forget as a target. It's one thing for you to deal with deprivation and deal with the hardships involved with this, and that's a reality. It's not very pleasant, but it does show you the desperation of these individuals who become involved. They could be doing anything. They could be doing anything with their God-given time and resources, but they have decided to do this, and they have done it based on something that they need or believe, and inevitably, they are going to have to deal with the effects, which are going to be far worse than what is happening to you. You have to believe it. You have to know it. You have to realize that you are not going to go down in the historical timeline as an insane, deranged, isolated freak, but eventually that these people will know all of the things that have happened to you. And that's really what you have to know. You have to believe that. You have to see that. And you have to know that these people are breaking all the laws of the universe. And you have to have that foundation. It is illegal. It is evil. It is deception and manipulation. And the only thing that can come out of it is something very very bad. And, even though it seems as though you are losing or, experiencing the deprivation and the tyranny of this whole thing, that's temporary. That is temporary. And we are looking forward to the coming of our Lord and Savior, who will rectify this and put it on the table with perfect justice and illumination. And that is really what we were hoping. A lot of people are talking about the political scenario that's out there. And rather than get into some of those things, you just have to see the real mechanism that's there. And targets are dealing with that. And a lot of the people out there who are dealing with that political manipulation, they're also being, led around by the strings of the puppet masters. And rather than to, put your hope in something that is based on the environmental tyranny, that eventually it will change. And that perfect justice will be displayed, and that all the things that you're dealing with will be known. Period. You have to know that. They will. And I've just as an example, I've talked about a lot of the targets. It's like they seem to know everything I'm doing. Yeah, well, all that other stuff is being recorded too. Okay, and they're not going to get away. Okay, there's a lot of contradictions involved in the framework of this whole thing. I've mentioned some of that kind of thing before, where you have these serial killers that just seem to get away with stuff, or all these other mysteries, but for some reason, all the stuff about you and your targeting and everything it seems to be public knowledge. All of it's public knowledge, and it will be eventually. If you guys have any ideas for future videos, put it in the comments. God bless. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.